Hi, it's Tim from Toy Tinker Tim, and I'm doing a repair episode that's not that unusual of a repair to make for a vintage G.I. Joe doing a shoulder, the elastic and a hook. But this is a repair on a figure that I've had since I was 5 years old. I didn't realize until a more recent episode that something was wrong with the shoulder. Then, when I went in to go take a look, I found out there had already been a repair made on this G.I. Joe. That would have been my father from some years ago, something that I never knew about until more recently. So let's take a look. Featured in many of the TV spots advertising the Hasbro line of toys. It was the Land Adventurer here. It was an early on focus figure in the line. And my figure that I've had since I was a kid recently revealed a secret to me that was out of view. I've done some maintenance and repairs on this particular figure here on Toy Tinker Tim. That's where there's been some touch-up reflocking on hair rubs, on his beard and the head. Also, I did a repair and restoration on the broken tab here on his shoulder holster, another common issue. But it was really more recently here when I was getting some closing images and shots for the Lifeline grappling hook episode that I discovered something wasn't quite right with his left shoulder. The articulation just wasn't right. The arm wasn't rotating properly. It was having a lot of trouble, and it seemed to be kind of frozen up. It was really stuck. So after getting off the gear and the shirt here, getting to the area to expose, and trying to pull the arm away from the figure to see what's going on, at first I could feel it was really stuck. Shifting it around and finally pulling it out from the opening, I discovered a now very rusty repair that had been made some time over the years ago. So it was my dad had obviously gone in to repair the figure with some wire. He'd wrapped around the elastic band and the rivet in the shoulder socket. It was kind of an odd feeling to discover this, and my father never mentioned it as well. He died a number of years ago, so it's not something I can ask him about at this time anymore. The repair itself isn't complicated here now. Access to parts and pieces are fairly easy, and I was able to pick up an original elastic band with the hooks as well. So I'll clean this all up before I put it into the figure. I'll work on the shoulder hooks, get those off of the elastic, so they can be cleaned up in a separate process than the elastic band will go through. So I've mixed up Woolite, a very gentle fabric cleaner here, in very warm water with about a quarter teaspoon of white vinegar added to that to help address the staining on the elastic. To treat the rust on the shoulder clips, I'm using a higher strength vinegar, and about a half a cup of this vinegar and about 3 tablespoons of just water mixed in with that. The clips aren't too bad. There's still some shine of the original metal surface. The rustiest parts on those hooks is where the elastic was at on there. So moisture being held into the elastic that made that rust form on those hooks. So I'm going back over to the elastic strap here and giving it another good mix and stir. I'm going to let both of these sit for a couple hours and come back and see what's happening. The water the elastic is in is getting quite dirty looking already here. There's a lot of surface dirt that has come loose, and there's still a lot of grunge look to the elastic and rust stains there. They pretty much look the same. The metal clips look untouched, even though the vinegar is still pretty clear, and the rusty metal looks maybe a little sludgy on the surface now. So I'm going to give the hooks here a little extra boost. I'm going to sand those down here a little bit with 400 grit wet dry sandpaper. So I'm carefully working over all the surface of the metal hooks, loosening the rust. Some of it is completely coming off now, and I'm making sure not to go too heavily, sanding where it might bite into the metal too heavily. And then back into the vinegar go those hooks here for a good overnight soak. I'll give the elastic band a little bit of a working over too, and then I'll just let those soak as well here overnight. I've rinsed and dried the elastic band, and although there still is some rust stains, it's a dramatic improvement. It looks great, and the original vintage band has some great hold to it, so it's got good life ahead of it here. So I'm going to fish out those metal clips and see how an overnight soak is treating those. And you'll see the metal is an oxidized black look to it. I'll clean these off, dry them, and then give them a final treatment with oil in a flame here to protect them from longer term type issues of rust reoccurring. The clip on the right here has already been treated now with the oil and flame to protect that against surface rust. And I'll go ahead and treat the other one. I'm using a pair of hemostat here to hold the wire hook piece for the process. They're fairly easy to purchase. My Amazon affiliate store has some sets there if you need some direction. For this, I use 3-in-1 oil here for mine. I douse the hook with the oil, shake off the excess, and then using a butane blowtorch here, I burn the oil off the surface. And then I repeat the step of dousing with the oil and then the flaming again to burn it off. And then, yeah, please use caution. Don't burn yourself or your home down if you do use this procedure. Now that the replacement parts are set here, I'll go to work and remove the wired together repair my dad made. So thanks, Dad, for fixing up my G.I. Joe. I'm going to use a pair of hemostat here to hold the elastic band outside the figure's shoulder socket. This way I can get a good grip with two hands to unhook the wire clip that hooks onto the rivet in the arm's shoulder piece. When sliding out the elastic band to avoid the hangup I got into here, you might as well just remove the clip from the elastic band while it's still held in place by the hemostat. That way you won't get snagged on the inside elastic like I did. A little finessing through it, and it still works out. The wire repair my dad made is wound up snug to the arm here. So I'll take a pair of snips and squeeze them in and cut the wire flush to the arm. The upper arm plastic has gotten quite frayed from friction against the wire repair over the years. So I'm using a flat needle file to run through the opening and clean it up to get it back into its original shape. I'm also using a little bit of sandpaper to run through there as well to give it a final cleanup. Another interesting note here about this particular figure of mine, you might have observed if you're watching closely that this left arm in actuality is a right arm. When I was a kid and I opened the box and started to play with it, my parents pointed out to each other that the figure had two right hands. My mom asked my dad if they should return it, and I remember him saying, "Well, he doesn't seem to mind it, so it's fine." I couldn't understand by looking at it at the time what the issue was. I was just happy to have the G.I. Joe. Some years later, I've replaced the lower arm section here with a left forearm to just get him a little bit better equipped, but I have no intention in replacing the entire arm. So I've still got to contend with a little bit of wire that's still stuck in there around the rivet in the arm shoulder section. It's really wedged in there. So I'm using this, it's a wax carving tool to slip into the space there and push it into the wire pieces to kind of pry the cut ends apart to open those up. Then I can pry the last bit of wire out to finish the repair. So now to insert the shoulder elastic for the final steps here in this, I'll put the one hook already onto the elastic here and onto the right arm to lock that side into place. Then using a bit of spare wire here, I'm going to run it through, and I've formed a tiny hook onto the end of that. You can attach the wire hook directly onto the elastic band and pull it through, and then attach your figure's arm hook, or you could attach it on the arm joint hook already attached to the elastic band, and then pull it through and out the opposite arm socket. Similar to before, you may find it handy to use a pair of hemostat here to hold your elastic in place as you attach the elastic and hook assembly to the arm rivet. It's a fairly routine, common repair type of an issue here with these figures. There's a little twist on this one, dealing with the wire repair that my dad had made. But I think there's enough general helpful information here to help collectors out. That's it. Your G.I. Joe action figure is back in action. As for this repair job and original elastic for the figure, I'll file that into my little parts bin here, the organizer for nostalgia. The land adventurer is back in action, fully clothed, fully flocked, shoulder holster still holding strong after its repair as well. So that's my mystery solved of the wonky shoulder here adventure with my vintage G.I. Joe action figure. So while you're here, be sure and check out some of my other episodes. I have other reviews, looks at cool vintage toys. There's other repair tips, various scenarios that you might encounter. Be sure to share the episode with your fellow collectors, friends that you know who might find this useful. Um, if you're inclined, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Be sure to hit your notifications so you can find out when I have new episodes. I also have a behind the scenes members if you want to support the channel and the work I'm doing here a little bit further. I appreciate your support. And as always, thanks for watching Toy Tinker Tim.